The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Females at the Olympic Village.
You've got some oil for the ladies to put on
Very
there?
oily.
I do.
You hold that sound.
Okay.
Protecting his son. Protecting him from sunburn.
Now, Peter, while they're oiling you down, you've had a lot of setbacks coming.
Okay.
You've had a lot of injuries, a lot of stuff's happened. You even had trouble getting here.
Yeah, it took me 20 years just to...
Go on, we're listening. We are listening. Tell us more.
It took me 20 years.
You know, there are children watching, so Peter, thank you so much.
Oil myself.
We're going to talk to you a little bit more in our next hour. And good luck when you compete next on Friday.
We do
All
love
right.
it. Yes, congratulations.
And
What is
avert
this
your
oil,
eyes.
anyway? What is
Matt.
this?
Coconut oil.
Oh, it smells.
Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini, and we want to thank Jay Jung from City Athletic Club for sponsoring the Rise Above Show. And we also want to make mention that we're always looking for partners on the Rise Above Show. So if you want us to help you support your business, project, services that you offer, we could help you advertise on all the major social media sites. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I will help get your business out that way. And then also there's advertising commercials on our show, so you can talk to us about that also. And then Joe Perroni's a personal trainer over at City Athletic Club. So if you're looking for a personal trainer, he trains the new people all the way up to competitors, diet, training, everything's customized for you. He's also a marriage and family counselor. So if you're looking for therapy, he can also do that. So want to make mention of that. And then I am also a hairstylist over at Body Spa West. I specialize in hair extensions. I cut men's hair, women's hair, colorist. That's my thing. And then I'm also a wellness coach over at City Athletic Gym. So if you want a trainer, I also do personal training. So we do it. It's kind of a family thing. It's Perroni. What is it? Perroni Wellness.
I'll let you name it.
No, we have, it is. It's Joseph Perroni Wellness, Health and Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also find us on Facebook under that too. We have a Rise Above page on Facebook. We're also on YouTube. You can find our shows on YouTube, Rise Above with Joe and Heidi. Joseph also has a website. It's called joeperroni.com. So if you go on there, it lists all of our current shows, his services that he does, and just a quick little blogs here and there that we post up to keep people posted. So we're everywhere, so you should be able to find us. And that's all I got to say right now.
All right, so let's start the show. So I was thinking, what do we want to do today? And I've been noticing that in my professional and personal life, and I think Heidi's noticed this too, that there's so many people out there that have a lot of difficulty in relationships. And when you hear people talk, I was trying to put it all together. And one of the interesting things is that it's almost like you could hear a couple or one person from the couple talking and complaining about the relationship, and they don't even have to be specific about their problems. And I started to think of, why do these people think like this? Then it occurred to me what the common link is. And a lot of it, I think, is the media portrayal of gender stereotypes. I think that's a big part of it. Because people talk in huge generalities, and they're not talking about the specifics of them or their partner. And one of the other things that triggered me to do this is that I think it was about 2 weeks ago. It was a slight argument that Heidi and I had, just a little disagreement. We all do.
We argue once in a while.
Yeah. Heidi had mentioned, she says to me in just a very offhand way, not a problem, she noticed at the gym that there's a pole dancing class, and there were like 8-year-old kids in this class that were girls. And I think you were a little bit annoyed by it. And you said, how in the world, or why would there be 8-year-old girls
In a pole class.
in a pole dancing class? And I just said, well, I believe today that there's an absolute lack of masculine values. That's why. And you got angry. Knowing that you know me, if it was very specific, you would know what I'm talking about. But somehow in the world, when we think about masculine values, there's a negativity put on it, such as toxic masculinity, these types of things, and you immediately went to a global or a general type of annoyance or anger at my answer, which really had nothing to do with what I said. So I think that also triggered me to make this show today. Do you want to start there, or do you want to start at a different place?
Well, we could start there. I like I said, I noticed the girls in the class, and I found it very offensive to see little 7 and 8-year-olds in there, whether they were with their moms or maybe they were having some special thing at the gym. I have no idea what was going on there, but I don't. Sometimes I wonder if it's because I'm older and I just have a different mindset, and things are changing where my mindset doesn't fit in with what is going on today, but. I feel that although we want to say that pole dancing is a sport, and it is, I mean, it's becoming it's not just about the stripper part of it.
Right.
You have to, and honestly, you do have to be athletic to climb those poles and do the tricks those girls do. So they are athletes. But my thing is to see little girls in there learning this or watching it at 7 years old. It kind of bothered me a little bit, but I misunderstood when you said the masculine. Whatever you said to me that day, I misunderstood where that conversation was going. I just kind of, I don't know if I thought at first that you were kind of defending it about what your comment was, and I thought, oh, here we go. He's gonna defend, which is not like you anyway, but.
Right, and it's exactly what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to use our little bit of an argument there as a thing for a lot of people where you didn't hear a thing I said, or you didn't ask me. That would be a good way to know, right? Like, what do you mean by that? Yeah. And I don't mean just to point you out, because I think we all do it, I do it too, that you have this overall interpretation of what I meant. And so let me be a little more specific while we're here. One of the things that you hear always out in the world now is how, men are basically bad. It's toxic masculinity, and women, they can work and do whatever they need to do, which of course I totally agree. We're equal. You can get a job and you can make more money than men. There's more women in college right now, even in law school or in medical school, than men. And to me, that's a great thing. If you want to push yourself to do more, that's great. I don't even know why we really have that conversation if men and women are equal. We are, period, end of story. But it becomes a little bit problematic when women say, I'm doing well for the very reason so I don't need a man. That's when it gets to be a little bit problematic because your children do. And so when there's a lack of masculine values, I would say in masculinity, when a man does well, he does well in order to be a very nurturing, compassionate guy, to take care of another person. And then hopefully if they do have children, there are masculine values there. And one of the things that even a little girl needs, she needs to know that she's cared about more than just her looks. And what I meant by lack of masculine values is there is no man on this earth that's decent that would ever put their 7-year-old girl on a stripper pole. That's not going to happen. We might put them in gymnastics or whatever it is, but that's not going to happen. So that's why I said there's lack of, not even just a man, there's a lack of masculine values. In other words, most men can tell you this, and it's actually backed up by a lot of research, and I'll just read this to you. It says, without a father or father figure, daddyless daughters, they set their own standards. So think about that. Like, you're a young child as a girl, and you set your own standards. How do you do that? You do that by getting attention. Well, let's be honest. There's no man that would ever want to raise a girl with the thought of you need to get attention. It's not about getting attention. It's about getting respect, right? And honoring yourself, having self-respect. And as this doctor continues, he says, since you allow others to define you, others will define you. The very thing that they find most attractive about you, the thing that you get the most attention for, is the thing that women put out there the most. And he says to explain more, He said, if someone tells a young girl that they're halfway cute, your clothes tend to get smaller, and your clothes get tighter, and you start to put yourself out there more. If somebody says your chest is big, you get attention for that, as opposed to what do you think it is about you that you like, and what do you want people to see? When you have a masculine man in the household, they would never put up with that. Because once there's a masculine man involved in a young girl's life, they're not out there trying to just look for attention. They look for attention because they don't have a daddy figure. And then it creates all this. And when we have a culture that demonizes men and masculine values, what we get is a 30-year-old woman raising a girl saying it's okay to get on a stripper pole and already start wearing no clothes and start to value yourself only as a sex object, and then buy into the victim mentality that you could be angry at men for looking at you as an object when you put yourself there in the first place. So all of that is what I was trying to say. I do believe that and almost all literature and studies will back me up on this, that without a strong male figure, that a woman's life will be severely dysfunctional. And it could, as a boys would too, men become more angry and aggressive. Why? Because they can become angry and aggressive in a home with only a woman. There's nobody there to hold them back. You are not going to do that with a masculine man. He will put you in your place. Now, as I say that, there's probably a group of people that say, a man should never put somebody in his place. That's angry, that's aggressive,
Yeah,
that's,
but
that's antisocial.
With female and men, there's the female side, there's the male side. We both have that. Men have it, women have it. And when there's not a balance, it becomes imbalanced one way or the other. So, it is about balance. And yes, a man, their thinking is different. The way they react to things is different. Their brains are different than ours. So their reaction, their adaptation of different things is going to be different than a woman. And it's important for a child to get both sides of it.
Right.
Now, however the child ends up in that environment or whatever choices they decide to make, as they go out into the world, that's their thing. But when they don't have, both sexes raising them, and that's why a lot of these young boys now are coming out with this ADHD and all this other crap they're being diagnosed with, because they're being raised by single women, or whether it's by choice or because they're single women households because the husband's left, or whatever the situation is. They're seeing behavioral. These boys are becoming more feminized, and the girls are becoming a little bit more aggressive. And
that's true. True.
I want to say assertive. What do you think, aggressive or assertive?
Well, it depends on what it is.
Okay.
See, there's a difference out there too, and I'll throw this out. A lot of women have this particular complaint, right? One of them is when a woman is strong, when she's decisive, she's
aggressive.
She's aggressive.
I would like to say it's more
acting
assertive. You're being more assertive. I could sit back and say, I could just sit back and listen to something and not have an opinion. Or if you have an opinion as a female, yes, you're called aggressive. And I think it's more...
Go ahead, say the word, because I know you're waiting to say it.
Bitch.
Okay, so
or a
here,
bitch,
or
so whatever,
let's just,
whatever it is. And it's like, I don't care. I'm a bitch, but I have a voice, so I okay to say sometimes what I feel or what my opinion. Doesn't mean my opinion's right, but I have a right to say, be assertive, to ask a question and to say, explain that.
You want me to make it easier for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. See, here's the thing, and I hear this a lot too, and this is why we're doing this today. A lot of women will get together and they'll say this over and over and over again. And without any challenging, of course you're going to say it over again. So a woman will say, I am successful and I'm allowed to talk, but when I do that, I'm considered to be a bitch. When a man acts assertive, he's considered to be in charge. He's considered to be an alpha. Here's the difference. There's a difference between saying your piece. There's a difference between drawing boundaries. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between being factual and having a complaint compared to whining and crying and taking a victim mentality. That's the difference. So if you're going to whine and cry and stamp your feet, yeah, you're being a bitch, period. That's not being tough. Again, when we talk about toxic masculinity, typically in the media, what they talk about is a guy who's being overly aggressive. He might be physically aggressive. He might curse a lot and yell at somebody and put people down and use names instead of actually speaking. That's not masculinity. That's a child. And that in no way, shape, or form should ever be associated with a man. So again, if I say some things today that just seem a little bit odd to people, I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why. It's because on TV, on radio, in any kind of media, in self-help books, 85% of the people that are buying into that stuff are female. So we live in a capitalistic world. So if you want to sell it to somebody, you don't necessarily tell things to people that will make them better. You want to tell things to people that will make them feel better. There's a big difference between feeling better and doing better. And so people out there throw out a bunch of garbage in the media to make women feel better so they buy more. 85% of the income that's put into buying all the self-help stuff out there is from women. So if you want to make a living at it, then you need to, I was going to say kowtow to it, but there's probably a better word. Well, but they do cater towards women. For example, I'll give you this one. We all know Dr. Phil, okay? Everybody's, first of all, he's never had a clientele. He's not a licensed therapist, but says he is, right? Okay, so let's go with that. I've heard multiple shows when he talks about domestic violence. And he will look a man in the face with a whole audience of women, and he will say, I don't care if a woman punches you. I don't care if she knocks out every tooth in your mouth. You cannot raise your hand to defend yourself in any way, shape, or form. And then all the women cheer in the audience. Okay, so here's the media representation. The man is always bad. Even if you're kicking him in the face, he's still wrong. How is that okay? And you're going to tell me that there's no women in the audience that have a son that would immediately look at that and go, hey, listen, we're talking about abuse here and we're cheering for abuse. Like, it makes no sense, but we hear it over and over in the media, and women buy that as being normal somehow. I mean, listen, Dr. Phil is not having a problem cashing his checks, right? I think he makes $35 million a year from the last time I looked, and he's selling it to women, but there's no normal man that's going to look at that and say, that's quite appropriate.
I mean, the thing is people have to realize that abuse is abuse, rape is rape. My daughter and I had this discussion last week about lesbians, and we talked about it, and I said, but I don't understand why, if you're raped or you're molested, it's kind of like lesbians have this attitude about that they are the victims, that it's worse. That's why I'm a lesbian, because I was raped or I was, forced to have sex, and incestual sex or whatever. And I said to my daughter, but rape is rape, Ava. It matters. I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but rape is rape. I got raped. I'm not a lesbian. You got raped. You are a lesbian. So I said, we have to stop this whole man-hating. We don't need men because one man or a couple men did something to an individual. It's rape, and it doesn't matter who's doing it. Oprah made a statement about when her cousin was raped by 6 white men. Well, does it really matter what color their skin was? Do we need to say they were 6 white men? How about we say my cousin was raped by 6 males? Why do we have to? Or raped? Does it matter? Because women can rape a woman. A man can rape a man. A man can rape a woman or a child, a woman. Ladies, some teacher here in Vegas just got arrested last week for having sex with underage boys. So, to me, the crime is the crime, but for some reason in society it always seems to be when the male does it, it's so much worse.
Let me add to that too, which is really interesting. Most people don't know. Okay, when we talk about rape, okay, we're talking about one of the most brutal things in the world that can totally take away everything, your self-esteem, your sense of safety, all of it. I mean, it's a horrific thing, and it's really hard to get over. I work with clients like that, and it's just terrible. I feel really bad. But here's the thing, again, in the media that we talk about. Do we really care about the people who get raped, or do we only want to talk about women who were raped by certain men? In the media, they always trash the men.
Well, and I
but
think it's
a
going
lot
to
of
come to the
men-
point where the media needs to be responsible for the comments that they make out loud to the public. I mean, there has to be some kind of accountability because people do listen to that. They do believe it. And like we said on previous shows, with all the social media out there, people are putting opinions up as facts. And if, the right people read it or you read what you want to hear, people buy into that. And it's like I said to my daughter, you're owning, because you were raped, you're letting that identify yourself. So now you're choosing to be either promiscuous or you're choosing to be very private, or you're choosing to be with women because you don't want to do the emotional work
Right.
to connect with a man. So you're actually you're buying in. It's a victim type mentality to some degree.
Yeah, I agree with you, but let me make the other distinction that not every lesbian is a man hater who's been raped, and I understand that. And I'm as liberal can be, so I have no problem with people being lesbian, gay, whatever you want to do, consenting adults. I'm fine with. It just becomes interesting when we start talking about, like, what is it about, not all, but some lesbians who have an outright hatred for men? Where does it come from, and why is it pushed in the media so much that it's okay? Like, that's the thing. Do they really hate all men? Or is it, again, they have a safe haven with a group of other people put together by the media who puts people in boxes? Because here's something that people don't know, and you could Google it and look it up anytime you want. In terms of the amount of people, more men have been raped in this country than women. If you, well, before you start going crazy out there, more men have been raped than women if you consider the prison population. Now, I know someone's there saying, I don't care, they're in jail, let them be raped. Hold on. That means we don't care about rape, okay? Right? That's my point in the beginning. Do we care about rape, or we just care about who it happens to, right? So either you care or you don't. And so the other interesting thing is, if you look up on the numbers, and they're not totally accurate because people are not going to be honest, how do people in the prison system get raped? Sometimes by other inmates, absolutely. But do you know what? More often than not, it's the people who work in the prisons. And one day we're going to do a show on this, the Stanford prison experiment. This was in the 70s they did this, and they took a group of college kids from Stanford, supposed to be smart, and they separated them into the prison guards and the inmates. It was supposed to be for a few weeks. They had to cancel the whole experiment within 6 days because they were abusing each other, they were beating each other, they were making them have sex with each other. And if you don't believe me, go and look at the Stanford. They actually made a movie about it. And if you don't believe the movie, which is based on truth, just go back about 8-10 years ago and look at Abu Ghraib. They were stacking up live bodies. They were making them have sex with each other. And some of those people in the military who got in trouble for that
But here's
were
the
women.
thing, Joe.
They were women.
Right. I think because we're in a crossroads here, and the way we're evolving, there's a lot of crossover from like years ago. Women were oppressed years ago, so that is a fact. That's not something that's not true. Women were treated like second-class citizens. However, we're not now. We can make money that we want to make. We can go to school. We can get married. We don't have to get married. We have kids. We can't. So it seems to me that we need to start evolving and moving forward into the not gender specified crimes, or because you're a female, you get a little slap on the hand, but the male gets punished more severely for the very same crimes.
Right.
And I think the generation that's coming up, these younger people, it's going to go more that way. The problem is we've got too many people that are in the crossover between the old school mentality, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I'm I'm a traditional woman. I'm 52, so I'm in a crossroads too, where I come from that generation of, I can have that attitude, fuck men too, honestly, because I've been sexually abused. I was sexually harassed on the job. I still get, inappropriate behavior towards me at times, but I'm in a place in my life where I'm stronger. I'm able to say, you know what, you're kind of a creep, so that kind of thing. So I kind of find myself, sometimes you can feel yourself being pulled into the whole, who cares about the guys, they're all whatever. But then you got to look at it and go, wait a minute. that was then, this is now, and we're it's almost like we're trying to go forward, but the media keeps pulling everybody back this way. Well, we want to keep playing the victim. We want to keep making men be these horrible human beings that they're not.
Right.
I mean, anybody that has a good man knows that they're not all horrible, and it's the same thing with women. Not all women are. What's that term guys like to use? Gold diggers, or not all women are like that either. There's women out there that are perfectly happy to be with a guy as long as they're equal. I don't mind. I don't care if you have money or you don't, but as long as we're working together and we're on the same page. So I think that there's a crossover now between, because I would be interested to hear what the younger people in their 20s and 30s, because like my daughter, if you listen to her talk, she has a totally different perception on what things are. She thinks of things as equality.
Right.
Everything is equal. You're a guy, I'm a girl. You get a job, I get a job. You go to school, you go to school.
I mean,
you can have a baby, I can't.
I mean, not to be mean or anything. But honestly, just name one way, just one, that women are oppressed.
I don't think women are oppressed today, but I think there's a part of society that wants to hold on to that thought process so that females still have that right to complain, or the fallback plan, like the fallback. I'm the victim. I want to be, this is the thing, I've heard women say, I want to have my own money, I want to have my own job, I want to do this, I want to do that. But then they still want to kind of lean back on the man if things don't go right. It's like you can't have it, you can't play both sides of it. Men don't have that luxury. Men either make it or they don't.
Right, which gives us self-esteem, by the way, and that's, we're part of what we're talking about. When you are relying totally on yourself, to say, okay, I need to make it in this world, and you don't hold it in the back going, well, maybe I could latch onto another human being for my comfort or my safety or to take care of me in any way. It's like, how can you live like that and have self-esteem? It doesn't really work.
And I think too, with the kids that are growing up too, that their parents are teaching them that, you get an education, you do certain things. They're not even teaching the girls now, raising their, like I know my daughter, I didn't say to her, you need to go to school and you need to become a mother and a housewife and make me babies, grandbabies. To this day, Ava will say to me, Mom, I don't know if you'll ever be a grandmother. And I'm like, you know what? I love babies, but you know what? I don't care. I don't care about that. So there's different, back when you and I were growing up, that was like the big thing, get married and have kids and have babies, have grandbabies,
But the interesting thing is, too, like you said a little bit before, is that you've had some bad things happen to you. And that's a general thing that has either happened in the past, that kind of thing, or something, that's totally unrelated to me. But you bring it into today's relationship like I did it or I was there. And I don't mean to put you on the spot. One day we're going to do a show about the gender stereotypes that ruin it the opposite way, how we say how women are. But right now, today, I want to do it more towards the masculine side. But wouldn't you say it's true with you and your friends? A lot of times it's these generalities about men that you see, that you read, that you see on TV, what they push, and that's not the man who's in front of you.
Right, but there's I don't want to say there's peer pressure. I don't want to say there's peer pressure into that, but I'm saying that being where I've come from and how I'm trying to be better and how I'm always trying to stop and think before I really say or judge something. My biggest thing has been judgments of other people and different things. So for me, I have to stop and think about, where is this thought coming from and why am I feeling that way? And yes, I do get tweaked when I see a woman being mistreated, and then I go, wait a minute, it's not my cross to hang on. That's her issue, and I don't know the whole story. So maybe she is doing something to have these injustices with her. But when you get in a group with other women that are not, I don't want to say they're not evolving, but they don't want to challenge the traditional thoughts, or they don't want, or even their own thoughts. It's almost like I feel like I'm in high school again with the peer pressure that you got to kind of go along with it in the moment to a certain degree, just so that you're not totally alone in your gender. But then, you go over here and you go, but that's crazy. I don't even think that these women realize what they're saying or doing. But then the media comes right back, or the magazines, and you Google articles, and they basically say what these women believe to be a truth.
Yeah, because it's very hard to find good information, because they're not trying to give you good information. They're going to give you information that women are going to read. Like, what you'll see a lot of times is that women are these very caring, feeling, emotional people, and men on the other side are these guys that don't have emotions and don't really have feelings.
Most women, and I shouldn't say this on air, but most women are very self-serving, and it doesn't matter if it's self-serving in a friendship, a relationship, a job, I don't want to say that they go back to like a childlike mode, but it's almost that way, in a lot of
I'm
situations.
going to let you say that. I don't
You
even
know, and
have
I'm
to
gonna
say it.
say
You,
it
you
because
already know.
That's the way it is. And unfortunately, women go through life with no real consequences because other women are not allowed to say anything, because you'll end up in a huge fight. And men, they're not going to say anything. They just walk away. They just go, whatever, it's not worth the fight, or they marry these women too. So you kind of go, well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's circular, right? Like, I'll say that. Like, it's both people's fault. But, listen, there's so much to talk about. But you mentioned one thing about if you think a woman is being not treated well or abused, let's say. Now, listen, I'm not a fan of Chris Brown or Rihanna. I could care less about them, to be honest with you. But I did read an article in Rolling Stone that I thought was really interesting. Because it was 8 years ago, Chris Brown hit her. And they showed her picture all over the place with the bruised eye, her black eye and all this stuff. And they were like, he's a horrible human being. He's terrible. And it basically destroyed his career for a while. Listen, I'm not saying he's a good guy. He seems like a piece of garbage. And any guy who's doing that kind of stuff, I'm not sticking up for you. You need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law or whatever it might be. I get that. But see, here's the other part of the story that people don't know. He was talking about it like 8 years later after doing a massive amount of therapy. And he said, okay, I need to own my stuff. I have personal responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And here's a kid who, I don't know how his upbringing was, but he was talking about how girls were having sex with him, older girls, by the time he was 8 years old. Okay, if he was a girl, we would be talking about the massive abuse and the boundaries that were destroyed on that guy. Like, we're not going to give him a break, but we would definitely have that conversation. But the other thing is, when he described the night that we're talking about here, nobody ever said anything about the woman, right? Chris Brown went on one of those daytime TV shows, and they shamed him to death, and he ended up walking off the show, and he said he almost committed suicide because of the shame of everybody knowing he was this horrible human being. But what they didn't get at was, in the story, was they were driving down the freeway together, and she takes off her shoe, her high heel, and starts smacking him in the face and hitting him in the groin and punching him in the face. And then she tried to get out of the car while it was moving. He reached over and tried to subdue her, and he did whack her. Okay, they're two idiots, okay? That's the point. But what happens over and over again is that we look at men as these raging beasts that you can look at it over and over again. We talk about intimate partner violence. It's always one way. Like with Ray Rice, we always get angry at him because he hit his wife. What we didn't look at, though, is the 2 times before that on video that she swings and hits him, spits on him, and then hits him again in the elevator. So it's two idiots. Like, I mean, listen, you can't be acting like that and say that you are a functional, adaptive human being. You're not. There's something wrong with you. So here are some numbers for you right off the top, okay? When we talk about intimate partner violence, 50% of the time, it's two idiots hitting each other physically and being
here's the other thing.
destructive.
Even if a woman doesn't hit the guy, the woman is yelling. She's doing crazy stuff because I talk to women all day long. Listen, they're not saints, okay? So they're doing something. They're not just, there's something going on in between these two people, and whoever ends up smacking the other person first, either way, it's not right.
The belittling, the demasculinizing.
Right. It's just, and this is going on. And how long can, the man keep his cool? How long can, and obviously the thing is a male will always usually overpower a female.
Let me go to this other one side just before I lose it too. Okay, so when we look at intimate partner violence, 50% of it right off the top is two people mutually reciprocal hitting each other or verbally abusing each other. Now, of the other 50%, right, just take that piece of the pie, 75% of that is one person abusing the other. Do you want to take a guess who that person usually is? It's the woman. So when you factor in all the numbers, about 66 to 70% of the time, it's the woman being the violent one to the man. Now, of course, we're going to harp on the guy's side because there is more damage when a man gets angry. And listen, they're all wrong. They all need help. They all need to look into their issues of why they're doing this. They probably should not be with each other. I get all that. But the media constantly beats down on the thought of women are queens. They don't do anything wrong. They're allowed to physically and verbally abuse men as much as they want. And it's the man who lashes out who is always wrong.
But do you
A
know
la
though that
Dr.
all women know that that's a truth as far as how they are in relationships. They talk about it. You know, so women know that they are responsible for part of the domestic abuse that's in the relationship.
And if you're going to be totally open today, I bet you've had the talk with women that say, I'm going to kick him in the groin. I'm going to do whatever I want. You know why? Because I have full faith that our society has bludgeoned this man's emotions and consciousness into this thought that he will never raise his hand, not even to defend himself.
Well, I think
True or untrue?
It's true, but I also think that
Can you say that again, just so we all know?
I think it's true, but I also think it's good that the police now, when they get called on a domestic call, they arrest somebody. They don't automatically go for the man. So if the man clearly has been hit and whatever, they will take the woman away now. So it's not, they're starting to go a little bit more to protect the guy a little bit.
Yeah, if somebody comes in, they look like they've been hit, and the other person doesn't look like they've been hit, they take that one. If there's two people that look like they've been hit, the man's going.
But it's accountability. It's accountability. You talk about this all the time.
Do women have
It's
it
accountability
in our
in
society?
everything. You can't. If I got obnoxious with John right now and I started getting abusive with him, I have to own that, but there's also a consequence to that. And the problem is a lot of times women don't have consequences to their actions because they give a free pass all the time.
I'll take it one step further. Let's say we're just going to do a business lunch, and you and John are out at some place, just whatever. I was going to say a place that's sponsoring us, but okay. So let's say you're out and you have a disagreement about something, and let's say John gets a little loud. He gets a little, whatever, and he's like trying to make a point. And you push him a little more, or you get loud. It doesn't matter, either one. Do you know that you're putting John's life in danger? Because every man in that restaurant is eyeing him up, ready to take him down. And that's how we've been conditioned as men. This whole thing that women are oppressed and men are out trying to take advantage of them is not true. It's actually the opposite. We have benevolent sexism. If we see a woman in need, most good men, 90% of them, 95, are looking out for the best interest of the woman. If a man starts to get angry and he raises his voice and a woman is just sitting there, that man is in a lot of trouble. John, you want to throw in on that?
Yeah, there's so much there.
Yeah. We were off last week. We got a lot to talk about.
Let's start there and work our way back, because I think, number one, I think that the statement that you just made, I don't think is true any longer. Now, it may have been a year or two ago, but I think that the whole concept, or there are more and more men who are really, women are objects. They're barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. That is a woman's place, and that is becoming more and more prevalent. Or the males who feel that way are feeling more and more justified in coming out with that. Okay, so backing up to prior to that, everything that you've been saying up to this point since the start of the show is based on your age.
True. Yeah, we've had that conversation beforehand. Yeah.
Millennials do not have a lot of the preconceived notions and the conditioning that we received when we were younger. And I think Heidi touched on it, that they do view each other more equally.
Right.
Okay? And going back to men hitting women in an argument or whatever, and I've seen it happen over and over again. Women push the men to that point because they know they're going to
get it. But can I tell you something? I bet you these millennials today, I guarantee you this, that and this is not funny at all, but I could almost bet if a woman hauls off and hits a guy now, or vice versa, they're gonna hit each other.
Yeah.
And they're going to get into it, and
Well,
nobody's going to, the cops aren't going to get called. They're going to settle it because it's like my daughter said. She goes, if a guy hits me, or if I hit a guy, then I've got it coming. And she's 22 years old. So they already have this thought process that the minute you raise your hand, it doesn't matter. You're guy, girl, whatever. If you end up in an altercation, it doesn't matter. And it's the same thing with the gender roles with, no longer is it the guy's role to take out the garbage and, mow the lawn. I mean, these kids today, they're equally doing. They're not gender specified. If the woman gets home first, she starts dinner. If the garbage needs to be taken out,
Well,
she.
and that's assuming that we're talking about reasonably mentally balanced human beings.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and there seems to be fewer and fewer of those today.
But I think, John, that the media, though, is really, I think, really responsible for so much of the stirring up the shit in the pot and the bad information or the misconstrued information that they put out there.
Good news does not sell.
No, and it's
Right,
all for
that's-
ratings. It's all for.
Right.
So the thing is people need to start getting smarter and start, like Joe had said earlier in the show, take your own,
Do your research.
do your research, but take your own relationship. And like, if your guy's being good to you, your wife is good to you, why do we automatically, we hear a friend's story and we start to look in our own relationship and pick it apart with, well, whatever that is. It's like, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing out there. It matters what's going on
exactly right.
behind your closed doors. And if you're getting along and your life works that way, and it doesn't matter if the guy's doing all the domestic stuff and the woman's working, who cares what other people have to say? But people would have plenty to say about that.
Yeah, but if
You know?
that works in that relationship, then that's the way it should be. Because I mean, that's basically the way that we're built. But we are conditioned to a lot of times go against our nature. And I mean, I'm not arguing the nature nurture
No.
Right.
argument either. But I think that there's stuff all over the internet and all this shit where you see the little different colored kids and from different ethnic backgrounds hugging each other, and the meme is always we teach them to hate. They don't naturally hate when their kids growing up.
Right, true.
We teach them that.
But if we teach women out there that there's never a consequence, that you can yell and you can smack and you can kick, and the guy's going to be hauled off to jail, that's sending a message that women don't have any consequence. We can act and be and act out anytime we want, and the man is always going to hold the greater burden of that. And I don't think that it should. I personally don't think that it should go that way. I think we're smart enough now as a society. We got computers, we've got all this social media, that women need to get out of that. And they're still doing it.
No. I think they are, and I think that is the trend. Is getting away from what we've just been talking about, and as the generations come up, I think that's more and more prevalent. And we're going to see more and more of that, to where we really are heading towards equality.
And that's what I said to my daughter the other day. I said, I'm going to stop you right now. Not that I don't empathize with what happened to you. I do. And it had to do with a women's group. And I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to help this particular organization. And I didn't know what that was about. And she goes, Mom, this is totally all one-sided. And I don't want to say how it was one-sided. And I said, now, see, that's what I don't like. You're portraying something to be something to help women, but it's really not. It's about one particular part of women,
Right.
That they want to perpetuate that part of whatever crime they had done to them or why they are the way that they are. And I said, no, because it doesn't matter whether you're a lesbian or you're straight or you're, what do they call straight?
Yeah.
And rape is rape. Incest is incest. And when you get abused sexually when you're young, it doesn't matter. So why are we going on the whole, well, we want this and we want that because we're in this particular group, lesbians, I'll say it out loud, because we're lesbian, this is the way that we are, and we want our rights, and we want to be able to, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Your right to what? So I basically said to my daughter, I get the fact that you were molested, I was raped too, so I have a choice too. I could have become a lesbian. If you want to, or I could have been promiscuous, but I made a choice not to be either one. So my question to her was, are you a lesbian because of what happened to you, or are you a lesbian because you were born that way? And my thing is, I just want to make sure you're living an authentic life, that you're not just choosing this because you're afraid of
Because
whatever.
there's a very soft landing
Yeah.
if you're a lesbian and you hate men, right? Like, I'm not even saying that they could be lesbian. Maybe they are, maybe they're not.
But look at the
But
domestic
being-
abuse in relationships with women. I mean, they want to talk about
Listen,
men
there's so
being
much to
abusive.
talk about. There's more
But
violence
there's more
with
violence
two
in
women in a
lesbian
relationship than there are
relationships
between a man and a woman.
and relationships with women than there will ever be with men. Two women will always go after each other 9 times out of 10 more so than the men will go after a female.
Well, I've always said one of the hardest things in the world is to have 2 women in the same house.
Well, yeah.
Another period.
So let me, because we don't have a lot of time, let me zip through some of the studies. I'm going to try to tie them in. You got
I
some?
want you to think about this because what I said is very, very true.
I know it is, yeah.
Wives, mother-in-laws. In more instances than not, there's conflict there.
That's
You
true.
find, I love my mother-in-law, blah, 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 and I love my daughter-in-law, but in most cases, there's always that head butting.
See, and that's the interesting thing too, and I'll tie it into the studies. Listen, we're told that men are basically jerks, right? That we're so aggressive. I have a great study here, and it says, it's funny, it says, are wider-faced men more self-sacrificing? What they mean by that is, if you go through the article, is guys who typically have bigger jaws, their testosterone is higher, right? And women are typically physically more attracted to that. So you would think that these guys are these bad human beings, they're violent, but as it goes through the study, it'll show you, it says, compared with women, men appear to be more sensitive. Uh-oh, there you go. Also more sensitive to intergroup relationships. We're better at relationships. Now, before we try to challenge that, I can probably name easily 50 bands off the top of my head, music groups, 4 or 5 men together, that have been together for 30, 40 years. Show me any women's groups. Don't tell me Heart. That's 2 girls.
I was going to say, hi.
Okay, but let me
Well,
destroy that for you.
I know, there's only one out of how many?
That's 2 sisters.
They were sisters.
2 sisters. They have to be together. And the whole band are men. But when you get men together, like The Who, the Rolling Stones, blah, 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 go down. They've been together 30, 40, 50 years. Men can put it together. They can all sit together and create. You can't get a mother and mother-in-law in the same house and they're going to fight.
I think
2
it's
sisters
estrogen.
fight. You fight with your friends. All women that I know spend a lot of time saying how much they hate their friends. They always fight. So men, we don't do that. So as the study goes on, he says the more robust males, which means males that women are attracted to, but the media says that we're pieces of garbage, our masculine behavior is actually pro-social. Why? Because we're protective. Now, if you're looking at a very liberal, let's say, or a very women-dominant media, which is 80 to 85%, they will say a protective male who can be aggressive is antisocial. No, they're not. I protect you with my life. That doesn't make me antisocial. It makes me very pro-social to you and the people I love and care about. If you're on the outside, yeah, I'm pretty antisocial. But that's the only side women want to talk about. They just go aggression equals antisocial. No, somebody has to stand up and take charge. That is very pro-social. Getting along with others is pro-social. Testosterone also predicts a drive for achievement. It relates to enhanced performance in bed and other places. And we are more self-sacrificing.
And you concentrate better.
And concentrate. There's a whole bunch. I know this will really date the thing, but because John mentioned it, and it's totally true, things are changing right now, right? You have a bunch of pissed off, angry old white guys saying, screw this, I'm not dealing with this anymore. If a woman hits me, I'm punching her right in the face. I don't agree with that, but that's a lot of those Trump fans. Like, they're very nasty human beings. Not all of them, but they have this very attitude, like, and you know what? They're really not all of them, they're not really anti-women. They're just anti, I'm done with the BS. Like, you need to have some personal responsibility. You can't curse me out in public. You can't punch me in the face. You can't kick me in the groin and act like nothing's happening. So they
My foot didn't
push back
slip, it
really
slipped.
hard.
Oops,
The other
my foot
ones are
slipped.
these wusses, these millennials that don't really have any testosterone at all. they're saying, well, it's equal now, so I could sit when I'm 25 years old in my dad's basement and play video games while my girlfriend goes to school. Like, those guys are losers too, actually. So I'm not really into that. Here's some self-sacrifice for you. The Titanic, 1912, just for fun. I like numbers and I like history. Okay, so a lot of people died, obviously, the Titanic. It's like the biggest thing, okay? Do you know that 75% of the women survived? That's a lot. About 15% of the men survived. You want to know why? Because all of us guys who are total jerks that women seem to hate and say, well, you can't work well with others and you only are for yourselves and you're all a bunch of narcissists that the media says, they put their wives in those boats so they can die. That's what happened. You want to know 3 dogs survived? You want to know why? Because the men handed over the dog so that their wife could have the dog even before them. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yes, it's true that it's outdated, but you know what? Most men, and I'm 50, I'm not that old, we still have that mentality. 52. Here's something else.
Trying to get by on that too.
Of the men who survived, and there weren't a lot of men who survived. You ready for this? This is interesting. Of the men who survived, 12 women filed for divorce. Why? On the grounds that their husband was a coward.
Oh.
Think about that. You survived. I would rather you dead. Then at least I could have some respect for you. But no, you lived. So that's crazy. And we did start off the show today with that shirtless Tongan guy, and I did that for a reason. This whole Me Too movement about how men suck and, you know, all we care about is superficial and the visual and we're just sex monsters. Okay, watch that video again of those 2 girls oiling up this guy when he's trying to have an interview, how it took him 20 years to finally get to the Olympics. He wasn't able to talk about that because these girls were like massaging his nipples. Okay, Matt Lauer gets fired on NBC. These women on NBC, nothing happens to them. Nobody said a word. There was one girl there who must have been sexually abused when she was younger because she looked at him and said, saw the girls doing it, and if you watch the video close, you'll see. She goes, you know what, I think I'll just oil myself. She felt a little awkward.
Yeah.
Thank God. There was one person there that actually had a brain. I could go on with this all day. We only have 30 seconds. Here's something for you. As much as we say men are this and that, would you prefer a boss would you prefer a woman boss or a man as a boss?
A man.
You hear that? How many seconds we got? Tell me why.
Because they're easier to get along with.
Oh, you didn't hear that in the media, did you? We're supposed to be the ones that can't get along with people. We all know how to get along with people. I've been playing team sports since I was 8 years old, as you know. Anyway, so I hope you had fun today and you learned something and used some of this. And if it bothers you, some of the things I said, you're going to have trouble in relationships. So take a look at the person who's in front of you and see them for them and not just this media conglomeration of things that are trying to get you to buy stuff. See the person in front of you. And if they don't measure up, get rid of them. Have some responsibility. Go out and find somebody better for you.
There you go.
Thanks for watching. I am Joe Perroni, and this is the Rise Above Show.
I'm Heidi Mancini.